Good day, everybody. My name is Ms. Maboe. Welcome you to Grade 12 Business Studies lessons. Today's topic is on human resources, specifically induction and placement. However, today we'll be focusing on the application questions. Right, our application questions goes as follows. Question 1 says, read the scenario below and answer questions that follow. We've got Afro Hair Salons, AHS. Afro Hair Salon offers modern hairstyles. Kimberly, the owner, outlined to her new employee that they are expected to generate 300 rands per day. They also discussed the employment contract and conditions of service. Right. The first question says, quote the placement procedure that is applicable to AHS. The placement procedure. Second question, advise AHS on other placement procedure. The last, okay, so it's basically two questions. Right, so here's the general rule or standard rule. When they say quote the placement procedure, they're basically saying take it word for word from the scenario. And then here it says on other placement procedure. When they say other, it means other than the ones that you are going to quote or the ones that you have already quoted in question 1A. So you need to be very mindful of that you don't find yourself repeating the same points that you've mentioned in A above. All right, so the question said quote the placement procedure that is applicable to AHS. Right, let's go through the scenario once more so that we can be able to quote correctly. Afro Hair Salon offers modern hairstyles. Kimberly, the owner, outlined to her new employee that they are expected to generate 300 rand per day. So meaning Kimberly is telling the new employees what is expected of them. They also discussed the employment contract and the conditions of service. I'm sure you've already identified identified the placement procedures that is applicable in this particular scenario. Okay, let's now do the solutions. Right, quoting the placement procedure, the first one, yes, that's correct. Remember we said when you're quoting, we're taking it word for word. So Kimberly, the owner, outlined to her new employee that they are expected to generate 300 rand per day. That is the first one. Don't know if I should write it here so that you can see. Right. That is the correct answer. Kimberly, the owner, outlined to her new employee that they are expected. I'm doing this so that you understand that when you are quoting, you take it word for word. There's nothing that you're leaving behind. They are expected to generate 300 rand per day. Right, is as is. I did not leave out anything. Right, quote the placement procedure that is applicable to AHS. Right, so that is the first one. Then the second one, we can say they also discussed the employment contract and the conditions of services. Let's write it down. They also discussed the employment contract and conditions of service. All right, so we've quoted the placement procedure that is applicable to AHS. As you can see, I've taken it word for word from the scenario. Now we move on to the second question. The second question says, advise AHS on the other placement procedure. Remember, what did I say about other? Other means what is not included in the code or in the scenario. Right, the first one says the employer should determine the similarities between the expectations of the position and the competencies of the employee. What does that mean? Remember, the employer is the one that will have to outline the expectations of the new position. So after outlining that, the employer should determine now the similarities. What are the similarities between the expectations and the competencies that the new employee brings to the workplace or to the business? Secondly, determine the employee's strength and weaknesses by doing what? By subjecting him to various psychometric tests, because it is this test that's going to help us understanding the competencies of this new employee. So we can do that. We can determine their strength by subjecting them to these various psychometric tests. All right, we're going to go to the second question now. The second question says, it's about Eden Guest House, e.g. The management of Eden Guest House has developed an induction program for newly appointed employees. They were taken on a tour of the business or of the premises. EG also introduced them to the senior management and colleagues. Right, so let's hear the questions. Let's read. It says, quote, 2 aspects that EG included in the induction program. 2 aspects, right, the keyword is code. Please don't forget that. Right, code. So when they say code, immediately know that it's from the scenario. The second question says, explain other aspects that should be included in an induction program. Other means what? Other than the ones that you've quoted. So these are the other ones. Right, the last question says, advise businesses on the benefits of induction. So let's start now with the induction program. Right, quote 2 aspects that EG included from this scenario. Check the aspects that are included in the induction program. All right, I'm sure you've spotted already those induction programs or aspects that are included. So they were taken on a tour of the premises. So that is what is included in the induction program. You should be taken on a tour so that you can know the ins and outs of the business. You know where the office is based, or your office if you've got an office, the staff room if there's a staff room, the canteen if there's a canteen maybe. All right. EG also introduce them to the senior management and the colleagues. So basically here is to establish a relationship with maybe the relevant people or the key people. So that's what EG has done. That should be included in the induction program. We're moving on now to the second question. It says, explain other aspects that should be included in an induction program. Remember, other means other than the ones that we've mentioned above. So explain other ones. So what happens there? There's safety regulations and rules, very important, so that you can know maybe in cases of emergency, what should happen or what must happen. If maybe we're supposed to wear maybe the helmets, the safety boots, maybe the masks, maybe. So that should be explained in the induction program, or should be included in the induction program. Right. Secondly, there should be an overview of the business. What is the business all about? When was it established? What does it stand for? Right. Thirdly, there should be a discussion of employment contracts and the conditions of service. Information about the business products and the services, all of that should be included in the induction program. All right, we're going to pause there for now and take a quick break. When we come back, we continue with our application questions. I'll see you after the break.